I think I didn't do anything wrong, just said what everyone else was thinking. So when I got served those legal papers for emotional distress, I actually laughed, until I realized he wasn't joking at all. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The dinner party was going perfectly until Nathan tried to join the conversation. I'd spent hours preparing our suburban townhouse kitchen, arranging appetizers, and making sure everything looked Instagram-worthy for Madison and our other friends. The wine was flowing, the laughter was loud, and I was finally the center of attention I deserved to be. "Oh, Aurelia, you're so lucky to have such a stable guy," Madison said, gesturing toward Nathan as he quietly refilled water glasses. "My ex was always running around, never home." That's when I saw my opening. "Well, stability has its trade-offs," I said with a theatrical sigh. "Sometimes a girl needs a little more excitement in her life, more fulfilling experiences, if you know what I mean." The table erupted in knowing giggles. I caught Nathan's face in my peripheral vision. His jaw tightened, but he kept moving around the kitchen like nothing happened. Classic Nathan, always so sensitive. "Aurelia," Madison squealed, clearly delighted. "You're terrible." "I'm just being honest," I laughed, taking another sip of wine. "We can't all pretend our husbands are perfect specimens, right?" Sophie, our 8-year-old daughter, had been coloring quietly at the kitchen counter. I noticed she'd stopped drawing and was staring at her paper, but kids don't understand adult humor anyway. Nathan finally spoke up, his voice carefully controlled. "Maybe we should talk about something else." "Oh, come on, honey," I said, reaching over to pat his arm condescendingly. "We're just having girl talk. Don't be so serious all the time." The conversation moved on, but I caught Margaret, Nathan's mother, giving me a sharp look when she picked up Sophie later that evening. After everyone left, Nathan spent an unusually long time cleaning up, methodically washing dishes and wiping counters. When I went to bed, I expected him to follow his usual routine, but he never came upstairs. I should have paid attention to that red flag, but I was too busy texting Madison about how fun the evening had been. The next morning at work, I couldn't stop replaying the dinner party success. In the break room, I found myself sharing the story with anyone who'd listen, embellishing Nathan's reaction for maximum effect. He just stood there like a deer in headlights, I told my coworker Sarah, stirring sugar into my coffee. I mean, if he can't handle a little joke between friends, that says more about him than me, right? Evan Dalton looked up from his lunch at the nearby table. We'd been having our little workplace flirtation for months now, and he always seemed so interested in my stories about home life. "Sounds like he doesn't appreciate what he has," Evan said with that smile that made my stomach flip. "Some guys just don't know how to handle a confident woman." That afternoon, Evan and I ended up in his car during lunch break. It had become our routine, stolen moments where someone actually listened to me, where I felt desired instead of taken for granted. When he kissed me, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. "You deserve better than someone who makes you feel bad about being yourself," he whispered, and I believed him completely. But back at home, things were getting tense. Nathan barely spoke during dinner, and when I tried to bring up normal household topics, his responses were clipped and distant. Sophie noticed too. She kept glancing between us with worried eyes. "Daddy, are you sick?" she asked during dessert. "I'm fine, sweetheart," Nathan said, but his smile looked forced. Later, when I was getting ready for bed, I found a text from Madison. "Hey, maybe go easy on Nathan at the next dinner. Some of the girls thought you were a little harsh." A little harsh? I was just being real about marriage. Everyone jokes about their spouses. It's practically a requirement of adult friendship. If Nathan couldn't handle normal social interaction, that was his problem to solve. My phone buzzed with a message from Nathan. "We need to talk after work tomorrow." I rolled my eyes and deleted it. He'd get over whatever was bothering him eventually. He always did. The bistro was packed for our monthly group dinner. Friends, family, everyone gathered around the big corner table I'd reserved. Margaret was there with Jared, Nathan's younger brother, plus Madison and several other couples from our social circle. I'd been looking forward to this all week. The conversation was flowing nicely until someone brought up vacation plans. That's when I saw another perfect opportunity. Nathan and I were thinking about a romantic getaway, I said, loud enough for the whole table to hear. Though knowing him, he'd probably want to plan every minute. He's very methodical about everything. I paused for effect, making sure everyone was listening. Some things require a more spontaneous approach, if you catch my meaning. More substantial effort. The nervous laughter around the table was more subdued this time. Nathan's face went completely pale, and I noticed Jared shifting uncomfortably in his seat. "Aurelia," Margaret said sharply, "that's quite enough." "Oh, come on," I laughed, waving my hand dismissively. "Nathan and I have our inside jokes. We're very open about everything, aren't we, honey?" Nathan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Excuse me," he said quietly, and walked toward the exit. "See," I said to the table, trying to keep the mood light. "So dramatic. He'll be back." But Margaret was gathering her purse, her lips pressed into a thin line. "That was cruel, Aurelia. Completely unnecessary." "It was just a joke," I protested. "Everyone makes jokes about their marriages. You're being old-fashioned." Jared was looking toward the door when Nathan had disappeared. "I should go check on him." "Oh, for heaven's sake," I muttered, but the damage was done. The table had gone quiet, and Madison was studying her wine glass, like it held the secrets of the universe. The dinner ended early, with people making excuses about babysitters and early meetings. I drove home alone, irritated that everyone was being so sensitive. When I got to the house, Nathan's car was in the driveway, but he wasn't in the living room or kitchen. I found him in our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at his hands. "Really, Nathan, you had to make a scene and ruin everyone's evening?" He looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, but something colder, something final. "I'm done, Aurelia." "Done with what?" He stood up and walked to the dresser, where he carefully removed his wedding ring and placed it on the wooden surface. The small gold band seemed to echo in the quiet room. "Done with this. Done with you treating me like I'm nothing. Done pretending this is normal." I stared at the ring, suddenly feeling like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. This wasn't how Nathan handled conflict. He was supposed to sulk for a day or two, then forgive and forget like always. "You're overreacting," I said, but my voice sounded smaller than I intended. Nathan was already heading for the door. "I'll be staying at my mother's tonight. We'll figure out the rest later." After he left, I sat on our bed, staring at that wedding ring and trying to convince myself he'd be back by morning. Nathan didn't do dramatic gestures. Nathan didn't leave, but the ring stayed on the dresser and Nathan didn't come home. Margaret's living room felt like a courtroom, with everyone sitting stiffly on her floral furniture, while I tried to explain that this whole situation was being blown completely out of proportion. "I think everyone's forgetting that marriage is about honesty," I said, looking around at the assembled family members. "I've never lied to Nathan about anything. If he can't handle a little constructive feedback—" "Constructive feedback?" Jared interrupted, his usual diplomatic tone replaced by something sharper. "Aurelia, you humiliated him in front of everyone we know, twice. It was banter, normal married couple banter." Margaret set down her teacup with a decisive clink. "There's nothing normal about what you did, dear. And frankly, I think there are other issues we haven't even discussed yet." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What's that supposed to mean?" Nathan, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner armchair, finally spoke. "It means I've been paying attention, Aurelia. To your schedule, your phone calls, your sudden interest in working late." My heart started pounding, but I forced myself to stay calm. I don't know what you're implying, but I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Nathan's voice was steady, controlled in a way I'd never heard before. Like the fact that you've been leaving work early 3 days a week for the past 2 months, despite telling me you're staying late. Or that your phone is suddenly password protected after 8 years of marriage. Gail, my own mother, had been silent through most of this conversation, but now she was looking at me with the expression I couldn't quite read. "Aurelia," she said quietly, "is there something you need to tell us?" "I need to tell you that my husband is being paranoid and controlling," I snapped. "He's trying to turn everyone against me because his feelings got hurt by a harmless joke." "Multiple jokes," Jared corrected, "in front of different groups of people, and that's just what we witnessed personally." Margaret leaned forward. "Nathan showed me some text messages, dear. Between you and Madison. About him." My blood ran cold. Those texts were supposed to be private, just girlfriends venting about their husbands. Everyone did that. "You went through my phone?" I turned to Nathan, trying to summon righteous indignation. "I went through our phone records," he said calmly, "and our bank statements, and our credit card bills. Interesting pattern of charges at that hotel downtown, always on days you claim to be working late." The room went completely silent. I could hear the grandfather clock in Margaret's hallway ticking, marking seconds that felt like hours. "I think," Nathan continued, still in that unnervingly calm voice, "it's time everyone knew the whole truth about our marriage, about why Aurelia really thinks I'm not fulfilling enough." I opened my mouth to deny everything, to explain that it wasn't what it looked like, but Nathan held up his hand. "I've spoken to a lawyer, Aurelia. Things are going to change." The law firm's conference room smelled like leather and disappointment. Nathan sat across from me with a manila folder thick enough to choke a horse, while his attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Wells, arranged documents on the polished table like she was dealing cards. "Mrs. Fenwick," Patricia began, "we're here to discuss the dissolution of your marriage and your husband's claim for emotional distress damages." "Emotional distress?" I laughed, but it sounded hollow in the formal space. "He's suing me for hurting his feelings." Patricia opened the folder and pulled out the first set of papers. "Let's start with the documentation of public humiliation. We have testimony from multiple witnesses regarding your repeated disparaging comments about your husband's intimate life, made in social settings." She slid a transcript across the table. I recognized the words, my own words, but seeing them typed out in legal format made them look different, harsher. "These are private conversations between friends," I protested. "Made in public restaurants and at dinner parties with multiple witnesses," Patricia corrected, "including family members and your 8-year-old daughter." Nathan spoke for the first time since we'd sat down. "Show her the rest." Patricia pulled out a second stack of papers, bank statements with highlighted charges, hotel receipts, text message printouts between Evan and me, discussing meeting times and locations, my work timesheets showing discrepancies between my reported hours and my actual presence in the office. "How did you—" I started, then stopped. The evidence was overwhelming, and Nathan had clearly been collecting it for months. "Your husband has been very thorough," Patricia said. "We also have communication records showing that you shared intimate details about your marriage with co-workers, including your affair partner, specifically mocking your husband's physical attributes and sexual performance." I felt like I was drowning in paper. Every private moment, every secret conversation, every justified complaint about my boring marriage was laid out like evidence at a crime scene. "Nathan," I tried, appealing directly to him, "you're ruining Sophie's life with this. She needs her parents together." For the first time, Nathan's composed facade cracked slightly. "Sophie needs parents who respect each other. She needs to see that it's not okay to treat people you're supposed to love like they're worthless." Patricia pulled out another document. "We're also pursuing the adultery angle, which affects property division and custody arrangements. Your employer has been notified about the timesheet discrepancies, as they constitute fraud. My job? I hadn't even thought about my job being at risk. This is insane, I said, but my voice was getting smaller. People have affairs. People complain about their marriages. You can't sue someone for being human. You can, Patricia said matter-of-factly, sue someone for systematic emotional abuse, public humiliation, and adultery, especially when it's as well documented as this. She pulled out one final paper, a printout of a group text between Madison, myself, and 3 other friends, where I'd shared a photo of Nathan sleeping on the couch with the caption, "Not exactly built for comfort or speed, if you know what I mean." I remembered sending that text after a particularly frustrating evening when Nathan had fallen asleep during a movie. It had seemed funny at the time, just girlfriends sharing the reality of married life. Now, seeing it in a legal context, with Nathan sitting right there, it looked like exactly what it was: cruelty. "The judge will see all of this?" I asked weakly. "Every page," Patricia confirmed, "along with testimony from the witnesses who heard your public comments and the documentation of your affair." Nathan finally looked directly at me. "I gave you 8 years, Aurelia. I tried to be the husband you needed, but I won't let you teach Sophie that this is what marriage looks like." As I sat there, surrounded by the evidence of my own actions, I realized that Nathan wasn't the same man who used to quietly wash dishes while I made jokes at his expense. Somewhere along the way, he'd grown a spine, and I was about to find out exactly how strong it was. The courthouse steps were harder than I'd expected, both literally and metaphorically. Inside, Judge Martinez had just finalized our divorce and awarded Nathan substantial emotional distress damages, primary custody of Sophie, and most of our shared assets. Outside, I was sitting alone with a manila envelope containing the official end of my marriage and my financial security. The hearing had been a nightmare. Margaret testified about the dinner party incident, describing in clinical detail how I'd humiliated Nathan in front of family. Madison, my supposed best friend, had written a statement apologizing for enabling Mrs. Fenwick's inappropriate behavior and describing how uncomfortable she'd become with my constant mocking of Nathan. Even Jared, who'd tried so hard to stay neutral, had ultimately testified about Nathan's emotional state following my public comments. But the worst part was Sophie's custody evaluation. The court-appointed psychologist had noted her withdrawal, her anxiety about making Mommy and Daddy mad, and her fear that she'd somehow caused our problems. My jokes, my affairs, my complete disregard for Nathan's dignity, it had all filtered down to our 8-year-old daughter. My phone buzzed with a text from my supervisor. "HR needs to see you first thing Monday regarding timesheet irregularities and workplace conduct issues." So that was my job. Probably gone too. Another text, this one from my landlord, about the security deposit for the apartment I'd had to rent after Nathan kept the house. Another from my lawyer about the payment plan for Nathan's damages award. I looked up to see Nathan walking down the courthouse steps with Sophie's hand in his. She was chattering about something, and he was actually smiling, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in months. Margaret walked beside them, and even Jared was there, carrying Sophie's backpack. They looked like a family, a functional, supportive family that was better off without me in it. Nathan caught my eye for just a moment. There was no anger in his expression anymore, no hurt or betrayal. Just a quiet satisfaction, like someone who'd finally solved a problem that had been bothering him for years. Sophie waved at me before they got in Margaret's car. "Bye, Mummy. Daddy says we're getting ice cream." I waved back, trying to smile, but they were already driving away. My phone buzzed again. A text from Evan. "Heard about the court thing. Probably better if we don't talk for a while. Good luck." So that was that relationship too. I sat there on those cold courthouse steps, holding my divorce papers and thinking about how I'd gotten here. Every joke, every cruel comment, Every time I'd dismissed Nathan's feelings as oversensitivity, it had all led to this moment. The funny thing was, I still didn't think the jokes themselves were that bad. People complain about their spouses all the time, but apparently there's a line between normal venting and systematic humiliation, and I'd crossed it so many times I couldn't even see it in my rearview mirror. Nathan had kept receipts for everything. Every cruel comment, every public embarrassment, every time I'd made him feel small and worthless. He'd documented it all with the methodical precision I'd once mocked him for. As I finally stood up and walked toward my car, I realized that Nathan had been right about one thing. Sophie did need to see what healthy relationships looked like. She needed to learn that love doesn't include public humiliation, that marriage isn't supposed to be a comedy routine where one person is always the punchline. I'd thought I was just being honest about the realities of marriage. Turns out, I was just being cruel, and now I was paying for it, one legal bill at a time. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent years complaining that Nathan wasn't man enough to stand up for himself. When he finally did, it cost me everything. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.